A federal high court sitting in Abuja says that security agencies, including the Abuja Environmental Protection Board and the police, have no right to arrest women on the pretext that they are sex workers. In her judgment, Justice Evelyn Maha ruled that the arrest, detention, and denial of access to lawyers is a violation of their fundamental human rights, and it is illegal and unconstitutional. The court also ruled that henceforth, no law enforcement agents should carry out any form of raid without a court order. Arise correspondent Punari Mamfeintola reports.
Nigerian women have continued to suffer diverse forms of abuses, sometimes from partners, colleagues, and even security agencies. Even when reported, getting justice is usually difficult. Research shows that in May 2021, out of 444 sexual and gender-based violence cases reported in the Nigerian capital, only one conviction has been secured. This has continued to discourage victims from reporting such cases to the authorities. Now, the Nigerian Human Rights Commission says security agencies should stop discriminatory arrest of people based on their gender.
Awarded between 2 million to 4 million in damages against the Abuja Environmental Protection Board, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Inspector General of Police, and Inspector Thomas Zemekwe, aka Yellow, in favor of the 6 applicants. She also held that the 6th respondent, the Abuja Environmental Protection Board, was presumptuous in its role and acted ultra-virus beyond its scope and powers regarding the raids.
Members of the civil society group want the Nigerian government to continue to ensure security agencies know the consequences of gender-based violence.
This judgment has harmed CSOs, development workers, to do advocacy, the media and everybody, to further sensitize our women about their rights, that their rights are protected. It's also not just our women for them to be sensitive, but also to tell institutions that are violating this right that our women deserve the best. They have been protected under the law, not just only the Constitution, but including a valid judgment of the court.
I think that there is already a will from the government to ensure that all forms of violence is ended. You will recall that I think sometime last year, the Federal Ministry of Justice had inaugurated an interministerial committee, a high-powered committee, which was set up to look into the cases of violence, abuses against women and children.
It's hoped that this judgment will bring about change in government policy and practice against gender-based violence and gender-based discrimination in Nigeria. Punarimam Feintola, Arise News.
Well, thank you so much, Punarimam, there with that report. Let's bring in a lawyer and rights activist, Deji Ajare, coordinator, Sterling Center for Law and Development. Glad to have you, Deji.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you again.
Deji Ajare.
Deji Ajare, all right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the correction. Let me start from the bottom. Okay, well, let me start from what I have here in the middle. No longer arrest women on the pretext, that clause, that they are sex workers. Does it mean they can arrest sex workers if they know they are sex workers? Because, I mean, that sentence, I want to be able to understand it. On the pretext. So that, from that sentence, it's looking to me like if they know that they are sex workers, then they can be arrested.
Thank you so much. A very valid question and a very worrisome development. Now, you would find in the case or in our process that was filed, one of the things we invited the courts to rule on was the propriety of even arresting persons who are sex workers, because as far as we're concerned, at the limits of the provisions of the law that apply here, there is nothing that criminalizes sex work in Nigeria. And so we had expected that the court would pronounce on that, the legality or illegality of arresting sex workers, as they are so called. But unfortunately, the court didn't do that.
The pronouncement of this particular point that you have just raised, in 2019, by Justice Binta Nyako where she actually said sex work is no crime. It has not deterred these law enforcement agents from carrying out these activities. What exactly is fundamentally wrong when this, you know, I mean, you have this court declarations that happened in 2019. Now we have this one. What's it? I mean, what exactly is fundamentally the issue here?
You know, the 2019 judgment, I know that there are disagreements as to the interpretation of the judgment of the courts as per the 2019 judgments. And unfortunately, I think those who are involved have not taken steps yet to seek some form of clarity as regards the intention of the judge in that case. And again, we're also faced with this that, you know, that sidestepped the request for a
because you know you didn't end that thing. So one can still but be interested in it. Does that mean you will have to go back to the courts to get that particular judgment you want? Because apparently the judge didn't do that.
Yeah. You I
mean, based on the fact that you said sex work is not
a crime.
It's not a crime.
I've not come across any portion of our law that specifically criminalizes sex work. In fact, on the contrary, what I think our law does is to protect sex workers. Under the penal code, there are provisions that criminalize those who basically like enslave sex workers. Yes, that's what the law. That's the limit of what I find under the penal code. Okay. And beyond that, there is nothing that specifically criminalizes sex worker. Unfortunately, the law enforcement agents have taken advantage of the absence of clarity in all of these judgments so far. But I would tell you, think that while we are still studying that judgment and looking at next steps to take, we are not oblivious of the fact that it's a sensitive issue, and so again, it looks like there is also that there's the judicial what's the word? I don't know. Yes, avoiding to so if they can find some other way to take a decision and then take that decision without actually addressing that issue. And that issue ought to be addressed, not for anything, but specifically because these people are citizens. They are humans just like us. They are entitled to their rights, and because we criminalize them by our attitude to them, they are constantly taken advantage of. The law enforcement agents take advantage of them. You have agents who take advantage of them. You even have customers take advantage of them.
In what way exactly? Because I mean, just hearing from Punari Mam's report that out of 444 cases, gender-based violence cases in Abuja alone, only one actually got any kind of conviction.
Thank you very much. When I say to take advantage of them, the incidents that we witnessed in Abuja at its peak in 2019, the raids on the women is one of those cases. I'll tell you, the intent of the law enforcement agencies, Abuja Environmental Protection Board and the cohorts, is to basically take advantage of those girls because they deliberately avoid areas where they would find people who can challenge them. So they go to areas where they believe that, they have people who are mostly indigent who do not have the right connections.
Are you saying, let me help you here, are you saying that they arrest them and get them to succumb to them by, what do I use now? Having carnal knowledge of them, is that the word?
Sexually abusing them.
Sexually abusing them.
Quite a lot of them actually allege that they were sexually abused. Apart from that, sometimes there are those that what they do is basically take money from them. We have cases like that. In fact, that was essentially what happened in those cases. There was and they talk about, I mean, I've listened to a report, they talk about being harassed. I mean, they were being asked questions, they say, we experience harassment from, I mean, you can't dodge it, and that's what we experience. So they get money, they take advantage of them sexually. I listened to one of the victims who told me of when she was arrested, and 6 officers took turns on her on a night. And it's basically very, very I'm sorry,
law enforcement officers.
I am telling you what the victim told me. Unfortunately, because there has been a very long period of time from when it happened, it's quite difficult for us
to
to actually
Deji,
present
let me not even run away from this. The question of denying them lawyers. I mean, that's another thing altogether. I mean, everybody has a right, even if you're a robber, even if you're a killer, to get a lawyer. How are you going to get around this?
You know, it's still part of the what we're doing is the advocacy to first enlighten the citizenry on their rights, and again also train the law enforcement officers. In fact, we need to let them know that if you need to get your job done and done well, part of the things you need to do is to make it very open. Allow them have access to lawyers. If you have hardcore evidence with which you want to convict someone, you would not deny them access to their lawyer. In fact, having their lawyers there makes your job easier, because then they cannot deny, for instance, confessional statements made afterwards. So that's that. But then, you see, in those cases, because it had been happening before then, and they get away with this, quite a lot of the cases have been coming up.
So any chance of them getting justice at all? Very quickly, in 30 seconds.
Justice? Well, yes. Thank you very much for asking that question, because the judgment has been delivered, but I will tell you that is not the end. It is not yet Uhuru. Damages were awarded, yes. You and I know that the biggest task has just started, that of enforcing the judgment, because the actors are state actors. You would probably need to get consent of the Attorney General of the Federation to enforce this judgment. That is a Herculean task. But we have started this task. We're not going to relent. We're going to go all the way.
The best, and wish them, the sex workers, the best too. And I hope that most of them...
I think... would say they were ladies, not just all sex workers. They were ladies, non-sex workers that were involved in this raid. So really,
all right. Thank you so much, Deji Ajare, for joining us.